my competitors aren't institutions. My competition's poverty. Like, we're trying to open the doors to opportunity for these students. How can we leverage AI to make sure that every employee and by extension, every student actually has a set of AI tools, agents, resources that can make their life better and can actually make their job more efficient, more effective, like really help them in this process? How do you work with these resources to be able to do it? What's kind of great now is it's an amplification, because in addition to having the AI agents or grad students, you can now have grad students plus AI. Being a working student or a parent or this or that, it does not work in the traditional model. So for them, if we can find and help them navigate the higher education pathway with a different learning model, different support structures, different value propositions, great things can happen. What I hope people see about National University is that we're in that family of learners who, like, the main thing is the main thing, which is to help those students be more successful. It's not about our brand, it's about our work.
Happy Thursday. My name is Ruben Harris, and this is The New Normal. The New Normal is a show where we go inside of organizations that are actually using AI in production at scale in a way that's making a meaningful impact in their organizations. It's not a show about hype. It's a show where we interview leaders who have made decisions to reimagine their organizations with AI at its core. Today, we're in San Diego. This morning at 5:45 a.m., I took a 5-mile hike down La Jolla at the suggestion of our guest that I'm very excited to introduce you to. We're on the campus for National University, and I'm here with the president, Mark Milliron. So welcome, Mark.
Glad to be here. I'm glad you got on that hike. It's a beautiful scene, right?
It was very, very nice. I'm very excited about this conversation because we had dinner last night, and you shared so many frameworks that I think are going to be helpful for people that are listening today. But I want to start off by talking about your resume. Your background is one of the most unique backgrounds. It's not just private sector, higher ed, foundations. Tell us a little bit about your background.
I have had the great pleasure of working in a lot of different sectors. And if you actually look at my background, it's been everything from being a teacher in higher education to being a leader in higher education to working to advance education in the corporate side, especially with information technology. I've been able to work in the foundation world, been able to work even with the State Department internationally. But the red thread in all of my positions has been this kind of personal commitment to help more and more diverse students be more successful in education pathways. I'll just quickly go back. Like, I come from a family of 9 kids. I have an African-American brother, a Native American brother, Korean sister, 25 foster kids who rotated through my house during the time I was growing up. And we had no knowing about higher education and what that pathway would look like. And if it wasn't for a community college, Mesa Community College in Arizona, absolutely was my kind of doorway, my pathway to possibility, if you will. Saw bus tables, waited tables, paid my way through school, got through Mesa, transferred to Arizona State, got 2 degrees at ASU, doctorate at UT Austin. And what was pretty clear to me was access institutions with a lot of dedicated people who really cared about folks like me absolutely made my pathway to possibility a reality. And I was committed to helping. How do you open that pathway for more people? And that really has been the innovation of American education over the last 150 years, is how do you help more and more diverse people be more successful than ever before on that pathway? So for me, it's how do you use technology? How do you use policy? How do you use innovation? How do you use different strategies within their institutions to help those students learn more, finish strong, and launch like rock stars into their careers?
Wow. You didn't share that last night, but that makes a lot more sense about why you're passionate about this work. So for the people that don't know about National University, what's your scale? Like, I know you guys serve hundreds of thousands of learners. So tell us how the system works and how you guys are connected. Yeah.
So National University, founded 55 years ago by a former Navy captain, got his PhD, became a higher education professor. And he was, back in 1971, kind of heartbroken watching service members coming out of Vietnam trying to use their GI Bill and access education through traditional models. And they were being savaged. And they were being savaged not because those institutions didn't care about them, but because they weren't built for them. Mm-hmm. And he said, there's got to be a better way for working students, non-traditional students, military students, to have both access and excellence on that kind of pathway. So that was the vision for National, was can we create a model of education where the learning is designed for this kind of student, 4-week classes, 8-week classes, one-to-one graduate models, and can the support systems be focused on this, and can the value proposition, and that's where he began innovating around that. And from that kind of crazy idea 55 years ago to today, We serve about 130,000 learners a year. About 50,000 are in degree programs, another 80,000 are in workforce training, contract training. The workforce training, we have our biggest and without a doubt our most prominent program is our Sanford Harmony program, which is a huge relationship skills program for kiddos. Works with teachers, works with boys and girls clubs, works with school districts all around the country and around the world. That program, if you want to look up Sanford Harmony, you'll be blown away. It is probably connected to more than 45 million kids all over the world.
Wow.
It's absolutely amazing. Our core degree programs, we have about 150 degree programs. About 2/3 of our students are graduate students. Thriving doctoral programs, law school, PsyDs, PhDs across the board. And then our undergrad population is heavily dominated by military still. Half of our undergrad population is active duty veteran, spouse dependent. We are, almost all of our students are working students. Half of our students are parents. We are, average age of our undergrad is 32, masters 37, doctorates 42. We call our students Anders. We talked about this last night. We call them Anders because in traditional education, the student's primary identity is as a student. They would tell you that they are a student if you asked them who they are and what they're doing. Our students are Anders. They are students and parents. They are students and employed. They're students and deployed. And as we talked about last night, if you ask them to choose between their ands, you're going to lose because that parent thing's a big deal to them. That work thing's a big deal to them. And so we design for that student population. That is 100% of our student population. It is a feature, not a bug. It is exactly who we've always served. And our faculty are committed to it. Our support staffs are committed to it. Our outreach strategies are all focused on it. So National is a different kind of institution. We understand who we are. If you're an 18-year-old who wants a campus-based experience, for the love of God, don't come to National. There are other great places you can go. They really are phenomenal places. But later in life, if you need flexibility and you want to rise and thrive and get that MBA or get that doctorate degree while you're working, guess what? That's us.
Awesome.
Yeah. So that's us in a nutshell.
Yeah. No, I want to talk about Anders in a second. I want to frame it in something else that you shared last night. So, obviously, I'm in the tech sector. Before that, I was in finance. There's a lot of competition in the world, right? Yeah. And you said something about competition that I think is very special. So what is your competition? Like, even with people, they're applying to different schools. Yeah. They're trying to choose where they want to go. Schools might be competing with each other for a student. How do you think about competition?
Yeah. So two things super important in our work in the world of education. One is having worked at major associations like the League for Innovation or foundations like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and I chaired the board for the Trellis Foundation and still work with Trellis now. One of the things you learn pretty quickly is one of the neat features of higher education is that there's this meta feature, which I've jokingly called it the CASE method. And CASE stands for copy and steal everything. Like what I mean by that is like the really good people, they're scouting. They're constantly looking for good ideas. And higher education shares. I mean, they will work with each other like crazy. And so what that basically means is if you're doing it really well, because of the desperate need that's out there, when people say, if you're in the software industry, like you get this, people would say, oh, if your investors would immediately say, who are your top competitors? You have to name your top competitors and talk about X, Y, and Z. My top competitors aren't, I always say my competitors aren't institutions. My competition is poverty. Like we're trying to open the doors to opportunity for these students and figuring out how we can make more of that. What's great is I've got partners in common cause. We're a part of the President's Forum, which is this kind of big advocacy organization of like-minded institutions. So whether it's Scott Pulsifer at Western Governors, Greg Fowler, who I love over at UMGC, or if it's Madeline down at Miami-Dade, we are all about like trying to help open these pathways to possibilities for this kind of student population, and we share ideas all the time in that kind of larger work. And that the other thing related to that, even though I've been able to learn from every sector I've been able to be a part of, whether it's foundation world, business world, policy world, one of the things I draw from the analogy, but you want to make sure it's contextually appropriate. So I'm not a huge fan of the business metaphor in education. We talked about this last night. And this AI actually fits in here because people will jump to AI because it's a business tool. AI is not just a business tool. AI is a universal infrastructure that people who are mission-driven organizations, businesses, civic organizations, like AI can be used by anybody and everybody, very similar to how the internet kind of like came to be. So we have to be careful not to jump to, oh, we have to use business principles. And one of the reasons I say that is like most businesses fail.
Yeah.
So, and like I would argue it's about what is your mission? What is your vision? What are the kind of things you're trying to achieve? And can these tools, these technologies, these policies, these practices help you achieve those things? So it's not about running like a business. It's like running like a great university and making sure you are adopting those policies, practices. And of course, finance matters. It has to be deeply sustainable. There's no doubt. But I'm really focused on the student learning outcomes. Our students learning well, finishing strong, kind of launching effectively. And can we do that in a sustainable way? If you quote unquote operate like a business, people get hyper-focused on the finance. And when they do that, they end up like pulling levers. Like you might scale too quickly. You got to, we always focus on, we don't want to be a big university. Well, we're big whether we like it or not, because people love our model and they want to jump into it. That's not the goal. Our goal is not to be a mega university at all. Our goal is to be a great university. We want our students to learn well. So AI, we're going to put AI on purpose, right? So the worst thing in the world to do with AI is we're going to do AI. Well, why?
Yeah.
Like you got to have a why. And for us, we're going to put it on purpose. And for us, it's how do we help our students learn more effectively? How do we support them more effectively? How do we help our employees do their jobs more effectively in a really kind of a really clear way? And how do we achieve that mission at a higher level? That's the conversation we have with our board.
Yeah. And I love you've already shared a few analogies with the Anders and everything like that. And I like the focus on collaboration and sharing ideas. And you brought up AI. So let's talk about AI now. Another term that you use is Wingman. Can you talk about Wingman and how you think about it for your staff and how you think about it for learners?
Yeah, so obviously with our military connection, Wingman makes all the sense in the world. Our mascot's a peregrine falcon. You might see one of them fly by. They actually nest out here by our office. And our hand symbol, like you have to have your hand symbol, is wings up. It's not shaka. It's not hang loose. It is wings up. And we always say you can't soar unless your wings are up. One of the things we thought of immediately with AI was how can we leverage AI to make sure that every employee and by extension every student actually has a set of AI tools, agents, resources that can make their life better and can actually make their job more efficient, more effective, like really help them in this process. And at our best, like our aspiration is every employee, every student actually has a Wingman that can help them do this work. So we started rolling out the Wingman initiative over the course of the last year, and it's been wildly successful. And let me just give you a basic idea of like why this is so important. When I was at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, one of the most eye-opening parts of our work was when we really discovered the fact that the majority of low-income first-generation students fail on higher education pathways. Working students have serious problems, and the majority of them leave in good academic standing. They leave because life happened, psychosocial things happen, and often because their life doesn't fit with the traditional model in terms of how it plays in. And what we learned is people were hyper-focused on the academic issues. They were trying to fix the curriculum. They were trying to fix the way we taught math. They were trying to fix this. All really important things. But actually what you needed to focus on was navigation. How do you help those students navigate the process and balance it with their lives in some ways? That was super eye-opening. And folks like the University Innovation Alliance, folks like Achieving the Dream, have all been kind of doubling down in the last decade on how you kind of focus on navigation. It's the heart of the Pathways movement, right? Yeah. So one of the things that we really realized was you want to make sure that you can help your students make the most of their time with us. We were talking about last night. I think analytics at their worst, AI at their worst, is focused on mitigating risk. Yeah. Your math models are all screwed up if all you care about is reducing risk. What we want to do is optimize outcomes. We want our students to literally suck the marrow out of this experience. How do they get every possible piece of goodness out of this, meet the right people, have the right experiences, co-curricular processes along the way? College is not a collection of classes. It's a family of experiences that you curate together to help them change their lives, right? Yeah. So for us, the idea would be, how do we help those students kind of navigate, and how do we make sure we're aware of all what would be possible for that student? So what we do is in our, I'll just give you an example of like the eye-opening part of this. We actually have a program called NULA, which is our National University Leadership Academy. We do 25 Rising Leaders every year, 12 module curriculum. But one of the exercises we do in that is we literally have them look at okay, here's type 1, type 2, type 3 reasons people leave. It's life and logistics, psychosocial, academic.
Yep.
What are the things we have at NU that will help? So we take these 25 leaders, we break them into groups. We want you to just brain dump every resource we have at NU that can help somebody with an academic issue, a psychosocial issue, or a life and logistics issue. Tutoring center, outreach, this, that, whatever it is. And we end up with these, every group ends up with these scrolling lists of these amazing resources we have at NU, and everybody's just oohing and ahhing. And when we look at this group of people who are some new, some are 2 or 3 years in, others are 30-year vets, and it's okay. How many of you learned about a new thing we've learned about a new thing today that you didn't know that we were offering to our students? Every hand goes up.
Wow.
Everybody's learned something different.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you work here. Like, imagine if you're a student trying to navigate this process and you had no idea there was a veteran center resource for this. There was the library resource for this. There was a single parent support group for X, Y, and Z. The Wingman, what's kind of great about it as an AI partner is no matter who you are, if you're a faculty member, if you're an advisor, if you're an enrollment counselor, that Wingman will say, okay, this student in this context, oh, by the way, you might want to think about this, this, and this. And so the idea is you can optimize their experience by getting the right resource for them. And there's no single individual that can learn about every possible resource that we have, but we can actually pull that up. By the way, doctors have been doing this now with diagnostics. Having that kind of Wingman in the medical industry, like in the medical world, is like the idea that they have all the possible derivations of different kinds of diagnoses that they can think about as they're rolling it through. So they might not have thought about X, Y, and Z and connecting the variables. So for us, that's been one of our big initiatives.
Yeah, no, I love you brought up the doctor analogy, because my father, he's in charge of the oncology department at Emory University, but he's also a researcher. And I like it because you're using this Wingman analogy for what Silicon Valley calls, or tech people call, AI agents, right? And you also mentioned that higher ed has been using AI agents that are actually humans for a very long time. So can you talk, you're a writer, right? So can you talk about like a framework for people to understand what an AI agent actually is?
I think it's just a matter of making, especially faculty, comfortable with the idea of leveraging AI. And one of the things I jokingly say is every graduate professor in America should be completely comfortable using AI. And part of it's because they've been using AI for hundreds of years. And what I mean by that is AI for them has been graduate students. They've had agents all the time. They've been graduate students. So when I was coming through my graduate program, I am the first book project I was a part of. I was co-author of a big national book called Strangers in Their Own Land, big national study of part-time faculty in higher education. Had the great pleasure of working with an eminent professor named Dr. John Roosh at University of Texas at Austin. And when I came with the idea of doing a project around this, he said, hey, we should do a book around this. And we put together a set of grad students, and we, again, conceptualized the project. He came in and nipped and tucked it. We did all the literature review, came back again. He and his wife nipped and tucked it. And then it was like, okay, we're going to conduct the research. And we went and did all the research, but he made all the calls to a bunch of presidents to make sure they responded to X, Y, and Z. And then we came back and we did the analysis, and then we worked together on what the framing of the messaging would be on the closing of the findings. It was the root of what my dissertation was, but it turned into a book before it ever was my dissertation. And that entire experience is exactly what AI agents do. Is like, and by the way, it was wonderfully beneficial for us. We learned a ton. I learned a ton about how to do that kind of research and what you actually what you have to be able to do to get things published. It was wonderfully valuable for me. But it absolutely was this idea of how do you work with these resources to be able to do it. What's kind of great now is it's an amplification, because in addition to having the AI agents or grad students, you can now have grad students plus AI, right? And so you're upping the game to get to collective intelligence, which we might want to talk about later.
Yeah. I want to get to that in a second. You talking about how you're touching 130,000 learners. You have about 5,000 staff. You have faculty and staff. You have grad students that can use AI now. How many of those 5,000 faculty and staff are on the phones? And the reason why I want to know that is you think about support. So it's not just about Anders, it's about excellence and support and enrollment and student services. So can you help us understand that? So
we're about 75-25 online on ground. We were about 50-50 before the pandemic, and the pandemic pushed us kind of over the edge. It's all based on the kind of programs we have. If you're a nurse, guess what? You're going to be, a lot of it's on hands-on kind of larger work. But on top of our online and on-ground kind of mix, we also have about 5,000 clinical sites, whether it's school districts, businesses with our cybersecurity, mental health clinics with our psychology and PsyD programs. So we have all these kind of learning interactions happening, and they're obviously stitched together by our combination of face-to-face and digital infrastructure. So it's not necessarily on the phones, as I would call it, on digital.
Yeah.
So they're on digital in a way where, and by the way, we capture everything we can capture around the digital piece. We use Qualtrics and capture all the phone stuff, and one of the things we've really worked hard at is developing a comprehensive enterprise data warehouse so we can pull the data together. Because I really feel strongly about this. Students' data are used all the time, but typically the data are used for the institution to prove its worth to accreditors and to the federal government and whoever else it is. The institution gets to use the data. I think we should be using student data to help that student. Like, how do you help them make a better choice, go in a better direction? And that's incumbent upon us to collect that data in as close to real time as possible, and then process it and analyze it and figure out how we can help them make better choices, go in better directions. And that's kind of the top aspiration. But to do that, you have to do plumbing. And that plumbing is, how do you, again, you have to create your data definitions, you have to create the kind of data warehouse, you have to be able to map the data, pull it together. So we've done a lot of work in the last 2-3 years to get that plumbing together.
Yeah.
And in fact, we're in the process of implementing a whole new ERP system, SIS, integrating our LMS, integrating that with Salesforce. And then, again, mapping it with Qualtrics and the rep, so that we can take that digital interaction and have the equivalent of, if I'm at Grinnell with a 15-person class in the middle of Iowa, having a deep interpersonal connection, which is powerful and rich. I'm thrilled that they have that opportunity. But the beauty of that is that faculty member picks up all these meta signals from this student. They pick up the quantitative data from whatever they're writing, qualitative from what they're writing, quantitative from what they're testing. But I'm watching your nonverbals. I'm watching your paralinguistics. I'm picking up all these signals. And my signal processing is usually, for that faculty member, happening in the brain. And based on those signals, I'm going to respond, and I'm going to create a more personalized experience for you. For us, it's the idea is, can we take all these data that we're getting and do something deeply responsible with it, which is process it and analyze it in such a way where we can help that student make a better choice, go in a better direction. What I don't want is for the only people to have personalized education are the people who have $500,000 to be able to get a degree.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's, and to me, we've got to figure out a way how we can make that kind of personalization and optimization. Again, we talk about the idea of Anders and excellence. We want Anders students to have the most excellent. We do not think you have to make a choice between access and excellence. You can do both of them. Michael Crow at ASU has been all over this for a long time. By the way, he's not the first one. I mean, the idea of access and excellence goes back to Miami-Dade. Bob McCabe actually was featured in a book by John Roosh called Access and Excellence. And it was all about this idea that you can provide this kind of high-level access, do deep kind of like outreach work with adult basic education at the same time you're doing honors college. Right, which is really powerful. So for us, it's to do that, though, you have to be able to take the data and do something really kind of meaningful with it.
Yeah. And speaking of personalization, Anders, and you mentioned something called on digital, a lot of people, at least that I've spoken to, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, are not as advanced on the omni-channel approach in a conversational way. Why is an omni-channel approach important for Anders?
I think what we have to make sure is we can meet students where they are and take them where they're going to need to go. And what we know is for working students, for example, is they're often stealing time to study. They're often they're calling advisors on the road to pick up their kid from childcare or on their way to a baseball game or whatever it's going to be. So for us, having digital curriculum, having digital curricular resources, having available people who are either on the phone or on chat or on email. We've got to be able to connect with people in lots of different ways. And part of that is real just kind of basic learner relationship management, right? And thinking about how you take all those channels and integrate them together and try to create a single view of who that student is and make sure they're getting the best support they can get.
Yeah. And so you have this support with student services, you have support with enrollment.
And faculty.
Talk to me about this other framework that you have, which is try, test, and tune. You created an AI council. You have rings. Tell me about that framework.
Yeah, so a couple basic frameworks. when we started this work early on, we talked about this idea that if you look at a whole host of different leadership frameworks, especially about how you drive the kind of change we were wanting to drive, there's three really basic principles you have to get right. And we call them the get grounded, get real, get going. And that basic framework is getting grounded is you have to come together around what's your mission, what's your vision, what are your values, what's that strat plan? And you have to do that work and you do it together. And it can't be top down. It's got to be collective. You got to come together and come to some agreement on that. And once you're grounded in that way and you reinforce that and kind of keep coming back to it, then your next steps get clear, far clearer. It's about the why, right? It's the why in this work. And you're clear on that why and you get clear on the way and what your theory of change is going to be, you can take your next step. But to do the next steps, you need data. So that's part of getting real. And part of getting real is like you have to get hardcore data, qualitative and quantitative, experiential, what's happening. And this is where courage comes in, because often the data smack you in the face and say, you're not good at this. Or you're great at this, but you're not good at that. And you have to be careful when you're leading organizations like universities or even like businesses or like countries. If you don't have the capacity to have humility and say, I've got to learn and figure out how we can get better, you're going to have real challenges. And we say what you don't want is a culture of blame. A culture of blame will kill you. If the first thing when bad data comes up is whose fault is that and we're going to crush them. It's got to be a culture of wonder, which is I wonder what's happening. I wonder what we can do about it. Let's get together and kind of go after it. And then once you have that culture of wonder and you have that, the ability to get grounded and get real, then you can get going. Boy, you can start moving. But part of getting going is what are you going to do? Well, based on the data, you're going to do kind of root cause analysis. You're going to do kind of like your theories of change, what's going to kind of get you there. You got to try something, but you want to get this cycle of, and this is plan, do, check, act from TQM way back 30 years ago. It's just try, test, tune. We're going to try it, but if we're trying anything, we're instrumenting it and testing it. So like we have ingrained in everybody, we're gonna make some bets. We're gonna come together based on our strategy and where we want to go. You're gonna make some bets on things we want to change. Hallelujah, make those bets, but you instrument it so we can try it, test it, and then tune. And tuning is, okay, stop this, it doesn't work. Or it might be, we need to do more of it, right? We need to double down on it. Or it means, okay, now we need to scale, like whatever it's going to be. But try, test, tune becomes a habit in this larger process. By the way, none of that's possible if you don't have good data. If everyone's arguing about the data, you're not going to get there. And none of it's possible, by the way, if you're not grounded, because everyone's telling a different story about who you are.
Can you unpack how to set up the test and the tuning? Like, is it a time box test? You mentioned data, the metrics that you have for outcomes. How do you take what's the feedback look like so you can tune it?
That's all institutional research. So Dr. Angela Baldessari, who drives that work here at National University, is absolutely amazing. And I'm enough of a geek in IR that I love everything about that. It's based on the question you're asking and the initiative you're kind of launching. You're going to use different kinds of data to answer the question of whether it works or not. For us, and it's making sure you're able to do like the crafty kinds of things around propensity score matching, so you can actually not just have to do an RCT for every single thing. You can literally do kind of on-the-fly analysis of what's working and what's not.
Okay.
Yeah, so and again, AI has been a real partner in this process. So, for example, we're big. We use net promoter scores extensively. It's a big deal for us. And by the way, even with our course evaluations, we got rid of the 30-question course evaluation. We went to a course pulse survey, which is just a mini net promoter score for the courses that basically say, would you recommend this course to somebody else? How did the course materials work for you? How did the instruction work for you? And then tell us anything you want to tell us about those first 3 questions. That's it. That's our whole course survey. And what's great about that is that we get a great response rate out of that, and we get really good quantitative data, but that qualitative data is just fantastic. And by the way, AI is this amazing partner that can immediately surface the themes, and you can start the conversation on it.
Well, you said something about, which I thought was special, how at a high level, leveraging technology, you're able to monitor metrics now in real time than you weren't able to do before. Like outside of MPS, what are the metrics are very important?
Well, we have a whole cascade of metrics, but we've anchored at the top. So with our long-term, with our 5-year strategic plan, we have a core set of metrics that are signals about whether we're on track or off track. And our metrics are total credential count. Are we actually increasing access and credential attainment? It is persistence, and it is persistence rate, graduation rate. And then we've actually have a student engagement score that we use. And the student engagement score is a variation of NESI that we've actually developed just for us. We done all the psychometrics and built our version of NESI that works for non-traditional working and military students, and then NPS. And those are those meta metrics. And what's great for our board is those new metrics are coming in all the time. Obviously, persistence is our quickest indicator kind of coming through, as is credential attainment. So we have a dashboard now for our board where literally anytime they want, they can get the most real-time updated data on those things, and they can dig in and then they can disaggregate.
That's awesome.
Which means I can look at it by different schools, different populations, and they begin to kind of ask questions, which is all really interesting. And by the way, the data compass is what we call it, is available across the university. Anybody can dive in and start asking questions. What we really want is for everybody at National University to see themselves as student success scientists.
Yeah.
Like we're all student success scientists, which means we have to look at the art and science of student success and how we can try, test, and tune things to make it more effective here at the university.
Yeah. And you've been on the other side before, so clearly, if people are listening to this episode, you mentioned about sharing and forums and presence together. For startups or technology leaders or different partners that want to try it with you, what does it look like? Is it an RFP? Do they apply on the website? Do they email one of your leaders? How does someone that wants to try something with you, how does that work?
Are you talking about internally if people want to try things?
Yeah.
Oh,
if people wanted to work with National University to help you with any of your priorities, what does that look like?
Well, one, if they're internal to National University, they're going to work with their teams to kind of stand up what the initiative is going to be. We actually have a group called the Cause Research Institute, and the Cause Research Institute is a central place for us to do our research. So we do, we're on a road to we'll officially be an R2 in 28. So awesome. we did, after our consolidation, we got totally focused on doing research. We got about 50 million in grants under management right now. Another 25 million that just got submitted in the last couple of months. So awesome. We're really on a tear with research, and we obviously definitely produce enough PhDs. So the pathway to R2 is there. I think will be officially realized in 28. Yeah. But on top of that, we're now doing fee-for-service research partnerships with organizations like. We just signed a contract with the Padres Foundation. It's basically doing impact evaluation. And so they've been doing large-scale work on foster youth, and we're bringing our research team in to help them understand the long-term impact of their work with foster youth. We're working with the YMCA to build out an evaluation framework of their community thriving work. So the Cause Research Institute, so you can go to NUCRI and you'll find it, is kind of our way of providing a service to other folks to help them kind of do this kind of try, test, tune. Yeah. And we want to be an evaluation partner with them.
Yeah. A question that we ask a lot is, are students allowed to use AI in the classroom? And something that you brought up to me is something called Raise 5. Yeah. Talk to us about Raise 5.
Yeah, Raise 5, we have, without a doubt, the most impactful college of education in the state of California. We train the most teachers in the state. Our faculty and staff coming out of this at the school are just absolutely amazing. Not surprising, this came out of our College of Education. Tori Temple, who's one of our faculty, who really was kind of inspired by the folks like Casey Cuny, who's one of our adjunct faculty members, and others who were really focused on this idea of how do we help our students? We want our students to learn about AI. No matter what discipline they're in at NU, they should learn about the AI related to their discipline. We want them to learn with AI, which means, hey, this is one of the most powerful learning tools we've ever seen in our human history. How do we help them learn with AI so that they can take this in other contexts and keep learning? And then learn beyond AI, the ethics, the implications, like how you work with teams around it. They're not going to get that unless we have a framework that lets that conversation go about how we roll this out in their assignments and in their learning. There was so much consternation about, is there cheating? Is there this? Or what do you expect? And people were kind of inventing their own rubrics. So they came together with Raise 5. Raise 5 stands for the Rules for AI in Scholastic Environments. And Raise 5 basically is 5 levels. Level 5 is no AI at all. Level 4 is basic AI, like Grammarly and this and that. And then level 3 is the level up all the way up to agentic AI and deep collaboration. And within the framework, it's color coded, and it has examples of the kinds of tools you can use and then ways you can document it. And what we've done is we've created a coding scheme for that for every assignment so that students know it's coded at this level so they know what kind of AI they can use.
That's awesome.
And what it does is it does two things. One, it just takes the concern about can I use it out? Like it's clear, like this is what you can use and how you can use it. Secondly, it actually starts a conversation with the faculty about the choice they made about the level.
Yeah.
So like when we rolled out Raise 5, obviously College of Education's rolling with it. They're all over the place with different levels for different assignments. And of course, there's some assignments for sure you don't want any AI. Others, deep, deep, deep. We rolled it out with our law school and our criminal justice faculty, and 95% of the assignments were level 5. Like no AI whatsoever. And then it started this conversation about, really? Do they really have to be like, can we at least let them use Grammarly? Can we at least let them use this? And it started like creeping up, and it started the larger dialogue about the framework. Become really useful for us. Yeah. Raise 5 has been wildly successful. I love that it came out of our faculty, and they've kind of worked together to figure out how they do it. You know, I told you last night at dinner about this idea that we don't have a chief AI officer.
Yep.
We have a whole of institution approach to AI. And our AI council is grounded in our 4 rings, and the internal ring is student experience, AI for student experience, and we have leaders at that ring. The next ring is around academic and operations, like how they're using AI. So how are the faculty using AI? How are advisors and enrollment folks? And there's another set of leaders for that. And then there's the infrastructure ring. And the infrastructure ring is what are our tools? What are our technologies? What are our data pieces? And we have a group of leaders for that. And then we have a governance, which is like what are our AI policies, practices, and what are we going to roll that together? Another group of leaders for that. And the people who are over the entire council, I jokingly call them the Lord of the Rings. Like they're over all of it. But we have now well over 150 people who are leading AI initiatives in every area of NU, whether it's academics, advising, enrollment, the library, the academic support centers. We have different kinds of AI projects, and they're all on mission and vision. They're all in strategy. They're all trying to advance the kind of larger work. They're built into the budgets. They're a part of the process. We're developing the instrumentation around them. It's really kind of inspiring to see because they're being really thoughtful about it. And it's not hyperbole it's as much as it is learning. Like we're going to learn. We're going to figure out what works and what doesn't work. And if it does work, we're going to do more of it. And if it doesn't work, we're going to stop.
Yeah. So I really love the 4 rings. You got the governance, you have the infrastructure, the faculty, the student services.
And the student experience.
The student experience. You talked about the collaboration between schools. One of the other gifts that we've had is Kermit Cook from Penn Foster, and he shared how he used AI agents to be proactive and support students. What is your relationship between schools like Penn Foster?
With other schools, well, I'll say Penn Foster, we're partnering with them around early college, and that's been a great kind of connection with them. And they're really innovative, obviously, and doing some very interesting things. Probably our number one collaboration partner are community colleges. So 85% of our undergrads come with significant community college, transcripting as they're coming over. We just signed a statewide articulation agreement with all the community colleges in California. We just signed an articulation agreement with Dallas colleges. Wow. We're working on one for the entire state of Texas. We want to be one of the most transfer-friendly institutions in the country. Again, navigation. How do you help somebody, because I was a transfer student, I get it. How do you help them transfer in and then excel on that pathway? By the way, community colleges are probably our closest cousins in serving Anders. They totally get who Anders are, and so we don't want to be their dominant transfer partner, but we want to be in the family of their transfer partners because there are a lot of their students who need our kind of flexibility, so we can help. Not to mention, we can help educate their faculty and staff with doctoral and master's degrees, so they end up becoming really good partners. So the San Diego community colleges, Southwestern here, but even the Maricopa community colleges, Dallas College in Texas, like we have great community college partners across the board, and a lot of that is data sharing, learning together, different kinds of projects. And then the President's Forum is the other place where you just get a whole lot of collaboration and a lot of learning in that format.
Yeah. Just to ground the Anders in data, you said it's a surprising stat to me yesterday about the number of students that go full-time to a university versus an Anders. So you said something about like traditional higher ed versus What was those stats?
A couple of statistics around it. We had Ted Mitchell, who's the president of the American Council on Education, was our commencement speaker this year. Mm-hmm. And why he was our commencement speaker is because he really wanted to come to an OCU. Mm-hmm. An OCU that ACE worked with the Carnegie Foundation to create a classification system that was beyond just size and wealth of your endowment. It was impact. Mm-hmm. And so what they looked at was access and earnings. Those were the axes they really looked at. And we were one of the 450 institutions across the country of the 4,500 that actually had really high access and really high earnings for our students. And that's that kind of Anders and excellence framework of we're trying to do it. So for us, it's trying to make sure that we can be the kind of beacon of that being possible for folks. If they're going to come into our kind of institution, how can we be that? How can we lead that conversation and try to take them in that pathway? Does that make sense?
It does make sense. But the stat that I was remembering was 20% of students.
No, and I go back to the OCU thing because the access part of it is, do you represent the people you're serving? Yeah. If you're, I think, and Ted talked about this, and I've talked about it in other sessions as well, living on campus, not working, going full-time. It's that first-time full-time fall freshman kind of population. Mm-hmm. But living on campus, not working, going full-time, you're talking about less than 20% of higher education.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, and 70% of students will self-identify as a non-traditional learner. Mm-hmm. So one of the things, people talk about the demographic cliff all the time. Like, we have no problem with the demographic cliff because our student population are not the right from high school students. We get some right from high school students, mainly because more and more of them, after living through the pandemic and other things, they want to work while they learn, and that's great. But our student population is a different kind of population, and I joke with people. Okay, think about your total addressable market. You have 43 million people with some college and no credential, right? If we'll take 1%. You can have the rest, right? Like, we got plenty. So the idea, and those are people who tried and had a real challenge. And by the way, the Trellis Foundation, Trellis Strategies just did a major national study on them. The vast majority, we're talking 80, 90% of these students left in good academic standing. They left because life happened. They left because being a working student or a parent or this or that, it does not work in the traditional model. So for them, if we can find and help them navigate the higher education pathway with a different learning model, different support structures, different value propositions, great things can happen. But it's beyond the 43 million. I think there's tens of millions more who never put their toe in the water because they don't think it's possible. They can't see it. Right? In their mind, they're terrified of the debt. They're terrified of not being able to succeed. And if we can show them it's possible, like, I think there's millions more that'll put their toe in the water, especially working students. Yeah. And they think, well, I can't work and go to school. Yes, you can. Yeah. There are all kinds of people who have done that and done it really effectively. And you can do it in a healthy way. There's all kinds of strategies.
I mean, you see it even with the traditional formats with, like, night classes for MBAs or executive programs. Like, there's ways to, like, set things up in that way. And what you're talking about right now too is when I asked you about online education, you said it's not about distance learning, it's about serving people like this, right? It's about
flexing your model to be able to meet them. So people will say it about National University, oh, you're a big online university. Like, stop. We were founded 55 years ago. There was no such thing as online learning.
On a physical campus right now.
We are absolutely focused on using whatever tool, technology, policy, or practice will help this student population. Our design thinking is with empathy based on the yander. Like, how do we help that yander be more successful? So our original design feature, I would argue, I was a part of the early board of trustees for Western Governors University, and what was brilliant about WGU was they really leaned into the competency-based model, and the competency-based model was a model that really works for a whole number of students. Our model, back in 1971, the real thing they focused on was, okay, a working student trying to raise two kids and juggle education, making them take 5 courses over 16 weeks doesn't work. Cognitive load is way too high and sooner or later work's going to blow up or kids are going to blow up, and what's going to suffer? You're going to drop not one class, you're going to drop all the classes. That's how that always works. And so what they came up with, okay, let's do 1 class a month. And one class a month, the cognitive load is so that I can focus. And by the way, if I need to take a month off, I take a month off. And what we found is students complete faster in that model. And what's great for them is, in fact, that 4-week model is to this day our most popular learning model on the undergraduate side. So we have 4 and 8-week classes. And then on the graduate side, it's the 1-to-1 Oxford model. They go to work hand in hand with the faculty member, shepherding them all the way through their doctoral program or their master's program. And again, the learning model is designed for that student population. And then the support system is designed. We have one of the most amazing digital library infrastructures. If you're doing advanced doctoral research, we have got a library system that is just fantastic to help you be able to, again, do the research-based work you want to be able to do. Our IRB process is fantastic. Everything is designed just for that kind of Ander student. It has nothing to do with tradition. It has to do with, can you design this with high academic quality and have them be successful?
Yeah. Can you talk about quarterly operating reviews and the strategic priorities that your faculty has, so that whenever they're trying testing and tuning, it's aligned with things that they're focused on?
2 different questions, but our quarterly operating reviews are every quarter we give a data packet to all of our major leaders, all of our deans, all of our advising folks, all of our folks who are dealing in core operations, and we really focus on 3 things. We focus on what are the student success metrics that are telling you, are you on track, are you off track, and then what are you on strategy or off strategy? So here's the data about, you told us at the beginning of the year this was your operation plan, and that, by the way, was based on our 5-year plan, how you're going to advance our 5-year plan. How are you doing against those strategies? And then are you on track or off track, or are you going to pivot? And then our last group is around sustainability. What are your financial figures coming out of it? And every single leader will, they basically write a report on what happened in the last quarter, and then projections about what they think is going to happen in the next quarter. They can give me all kinds of appendices, and we end up in a really rich discussion with every major leader talking about the work of the last quarter and their projection into the next quarter. And what's great about it is it gives us a place to bring the student success data, and also gives them a place to talk about the results of their try-test and tuning. So a good example, our advising and enrollment folks, together with our registrar and some others, work with our academic deans, and one of their big projects in the last year was something called ReadySet College. And ReadySet College was completely reimagining entry into NU for our beginning students. And I won't bore you with all the specifics, but the whole idea was to make sure these students were absolutely ready to learn on day one. And the idea that everything was there for them, all the kinds of resources as they got in, and that then we could support them and wrap the right kind of support to help them accelerate. People were really worried because it was different than the way we had done it in the past, and they were terrified about how it would impact our new starts and X, Y, and Z. And part of their analysis was they did their projections and said, new starts might go down a little, but our persistence is going to go up. And that persistence is more than going to pay for this. It's actually make it way more successful. It will increase our persistence and our grad rates for these students. And they launched it over the course of last year. Wildly successful. Awesome. And that initial data, what's good is they made their projections, and they came in every quarter, last year and a half, they reported on how we doing. And there's a lot of, you get in some of these where it's the only way out is through, right?
Yeah.
You're going to be in these hairy moments. But what they really showed was it's working. And what's great is even our CFO has fully embraced the idea, he fully understands the compounding effect of persistence and retention. Yeah. The idea that more of these students are going to be there, which actually impacts your ending active enrollment, which means you have a totally different base of students to be able to sustain the larger university. And what's also good about this is we have deeply empowered every one of our leaders with the data that will help them be more successful. We do not want to infantilize our leaders. We're not going to come with a budget and tell them, okay, do this or do that. We want them to be partners in building that budget and managing that budget. And then, and more importantly, driving, here are the student success strategies we're engaging. And here's how it's working against our strategic plan. And then based on that, here's what's coming with the outcomes. What's been really wonderful about this is it's led to, I call it a leaderful environment where they really feel empowered. Now, boy, they're held accountable. We have this whole culture. I'll walk you over to our ways of work, which are on the wall back over there. We have fully embraced these ways of work where we say, if you're coming to NU, you're going to see us championing student success, building trust, advancing inclusion, embracing accountability, and above all things, making things better. Every day we're trying to work. It's about aggregated marginal gains. We're making things better. And our people in the QORs are fully embracing that and using that as a great conversation to talk about how they're making those kinds of steps.
Awesome. So when we do the B-roll, I'll make sure that Mike and Tommy have us walking by the ways of work. On the piece related to the analogies that you've dropped so far, I'm going to talk about history a little bit, because you help people understand what AI agents are using the grad student mindset. You didn't just start your own startup and your own education startup before this in education. You also worked in tech companies before, like Oracle and others. You even worked with Larry Ellison himself. The reason why I'm bringing this up is you have seen the introduction of technology into higher ed in various ways, including email, microcomputers, and the way higher ed has reacted that I would say rhymes with how people are reacting to AI now. Can you walk us through that?
Yeah, I think, it's a very kind way of saying I'm an old guy, but okay. No, I mean, I literally began my career, in the conversation with faculty and staff. My first vice presidency was really working with an institution to help them embrace email, to embrace microcomputers. We got a major grant to fully install microcomputers across the entire campus. We had to do training for all of our faculty and staff. I literally had a faculty member. It was funny because we told the folks we were only going to install their computers after they did training. And one of our really eager tech folks over the weekend installed the computers in all the faculty members' offices without them knowing it over the weekend. And one of our faculty members, who I love, is this liberal arts faculty member who is absolutely amazing, but I knew his proclivity, how he felt about technology. He threw his computer out a second-story window. Smashed on the ground below. As you can figure out, he had tenure. So I'm just kidding. But we ended up in great conversations with him. And what was really compelling was it wasn't about trying to convince Steve that, it wasn't like, darn damn it, you have to do this. It was very much about, this could be useful for many of your students. And the student that got him, this is just a really good story. What turned Steve around? He was a complete angry, caustic cynic until this happened. We had a woman who came back to school against her family was totally against her going back to school. She wanted to be a nurse. She came from a very kind of religious rural community. They thought her place was in the home. She wanted to get educated, and she thought if she could become a nurse, she could provide for her family, and it'd be a great symbol for her kids. She came back to the school, and she was rocking it. She was getting A's in all of her classes. But then suddenly she was showing up with bruises. She was showing up with all kinds of kind of broader abuse was happening. And faculty were trying to connect with her, our support staff was trying to connect with her. And then finally her husband beat her to a pulp, put her in the hospital. And our teams went to meet with her, and she still wanted to continue. We helped work with her with this. And she was 2/3 of the way through the program, doing incredibly well. And then she came back to school, and we were working with her, and then, boy, he almost killed her. I mean, he beat her so badly. And it was a small rural town. This is the early 90s. Yeah. They still didn't do anything. It was considered a family matter, whatever it was. And she finally she left. She disappeared. Yeah. And it was right at the end of the semester, and everybody was heartbroken because she was such an amazing student. And no one knew where she was. No one could find her. And, part of that was obviously by her choice. And then suddenly one day I get a knock on my door, and Steve pokes his head in, and he's like, Mark, can I talk to you real quick? And this is the guy who threw the computer out the window. Yeah. And I'm thinking to myself, post office? Like, what's going to go on here? Is he going to freak out? No. And he comes in, and he literally closes the door, and he turns the blinds down, and he comes over. He goes, I need you to show me how to open my email. I'm like, what? Wow. I'm like, Steve, I'm more than glad to, but what's going on? And he tells me the story of Gina. And so he sits down, I'm like, come here, Steve. He sat down next to me, and I logged him in for the first time. His email account had never been opened. We opened it up and got him on there. And Gina had emailed her end of class assignments to him and attached it to the email. Wow. And we opened them up, and we printed them out, and he was able to grade them and send her grade. I cannot tell you a prouder day in my life than when Gina walked across that stage. Yeah. And by the way, when she came back, her husband said that if she came back to school, he was going to kill her. She decided to come back, and we had a whole action plan in place. And when she came back on campus, he came on campus, and we had the right plan in place, and we got him handled. But I've never been more proud than her walking across the stage and getting her degree and her nursing pin where a family that literally once prayed she would quit was now kind of in awe of mom and of their daughter getting the larger degree. Just absolutely amazing. Yeah. And it was enabled by a new technology.
Yeah.
And it was by Steve being willing to say, I'm going to try this thing different. Now, Steve never became like a huge advocate, but he suddenly like started using it because it was useful. Tell that long story. Just talk about the idea that I've seen this happen again and again and again with email, microcomputers, with the internet. And now with AI, is like these tools have the ability to open access to more learners than ever before. It also has the ability to help them navigate education like never before. It will help us bring learning in a way that we've never seen. We were talking about the idea that it isn't about artificial intelligence, it's about collective intelligence. This is a new tool in the toolkit. 60 years ago, our collective intelligence, education has always been about helping you optimize your collective intelligence, but our tools for collective intelligence were the family we were born into, the friends we have, the schools we went to, the libraries those schools had, and maybe our encyclopedias, right? But the internet changed all that because suddenly more people had more access to more information, and that we had to train people to use the internet to pull that. And then mobile took that to another level. And now with AI, we're at a whole different level. And what's brilliant about that is somebody in rural Appalachia, somebody in inner city Detroit, somebody in the middle of Fallujah, like we can get infrastructure to them to help them learn well and finish strong.
Yeah.
And it really is inspiring. The work I've been able to do with the African Virtual University out of the World Bank, just seeing and working with kids from sub-Saharan Africa who are now at Wits University, who are like getting their master's degree in microbiology, who learned everything via the digital tools. It's just the realization that all these things go from novel to normal.
Yeah.
They're novel, they're weird, they're crazy, and then suddenly now they're normal. Yeah. Like and they're just thing after thing after thing. And then you're talking about it rhymes. I've seen this play. Yeah. I've watched this happen again. And part of it is you just have to be willing to let people go through their phases and kind of bring them along and realize, make it about the purpose. And the biggest mistake, and you know this from this podcast, you can't make it about the technology. It's not about the technology. It's about how we can put it on purpose to make a difference for these students, to help them learn better, navigate better, connect better, and launch into their kind of larger experiences. Sorry, it's a long answer to your question.
That was one of the best stories I've ever heard. And I love that you talked about how things start off novel, go to normal. It's tied to even the name of the show. We talk about a lot how what sounds strange is just early, but the reason why I like that you told the story is because there's a lot of people like Steve that want to serve people like Gina.
That's right.
Right? And in the dinner last night, you talked about the adoption curve, right? There's innovators, there's
early
adopters, early majority, late majority. And then you talked about playbooks. So for the people that are Steve today that want to serve learners like Gina, how should they be thinking about this curve?
Yeah, and this is probably, and this is nothing new. I didn't invent this. This is the Rogerian innovation curve stuff has been out there for a long time. And I've used this in foundation circles, and I've used this in our own innovation circles internally. But basically, we take a bell curve and you say, hey, the innovators and early adopters are on the far left of the bell curve, and you'll get a small segment of people who are just energy and excitement, and they're going crazy. And the big thing you can do as a leader is help them, give them some resources, give them some shine, get them excited. But what you got to encourage them to do is you got to encourage them to get data. They need data. They need evidence that what they're doing is actually making a difference, especially around the things you care about. And the idea is like start collecting and measuring mission-driven metrics, and then have that evidence begin to accumulate. And you have your own evidence, and you can have evidence from colleague institutions around the country as well. That evidence allows you to get to that early majority. That early majority, as you go up the curve to the middle, they need evidence. You need to be able to say, we're doing it, other people are doing it, we're seeing really good outcomes, let's have you try it too. And that early majority will come in, they'll put their toe in the water. Okay, they've done it. Okay, they saw my other college did it at our school, and they'll start doing it. And you'll start seeing, people adopting. You're not going to get to the late majority until you have playbooks. And playbooks are basically like, okay, based on all the evidence and all the exercise, we know here's the 3 things you have to do to make this work. Here are the 5 things you have to do. And if you can get those playbooks in place, that late majority will jump on if there's value. here's the biggest thing. There better be value. It has to work. It actually has to help make it better. It can't be just selling them and how cool the technology is. I mean, for the longest time, the number one finding out of the EDUCAUSE survey of student technology was death by PowerPoint, right? Because everyone was just throwing PowerPoint at everything. And like, whatever you're using it for, it has to actually make a difference. And then you're going to get to the laggards, and you're going to have a very hard time ever getting those folks on. And you don't like spend a ton of energy. The problem is laggards will try to drive you to focus all your energy on them, and you can't. You just really focus on the people who are adopting. But the basic rule of thumb is, if you're a novel to normal leader and you're constantly looking for what are these novel things that have promise that can help us, how can we learn about how they can work more effectively, you're going to be thinking about who are those innovators and early adopters who can try things at my institution. How do I shine a light on that, collect really good data on it? For the things that really work, we'll double down and go bigger and bring that into the early majority. We'll do more of that. Then we'll start building the playbooks and roll it out more effectively across the entire institution. Guess what? You're going to do that 50 times in your career with different technologies, different tools, different kinds of resources. And it really helps, by the way, if you have good partners in common cause. That's why I like President's Forum. That's why I like, there's lots of organizations out there that you can work with to kind of steal good ideas and get inspired. I
think Harvard's unique because like you said, they're not businesses, right? So like most businesses fail, right? Universities have been around for like hundreds of years, right? And so thousands of years, right?
If you go to Europe, they literally have institutions that are called the ancients that were commissioned by the Pope, right? Back in the 1400s. So
so this is even a stronger point, right? What you're bringing up is like they've been around for thousands of years. So my question now, as we think about novel to normal and the curve that you just talked about, is there a cost to not doing anything related to AI? And does it matter if it's fast or slow?
I wrote an article recently for Fast Company that basically made the case that not educating your students in the basics of AI for their discipline and exposing them to the learning resources possible, along with, by the way, the negative problems and challenges within it. But not doing that, especially if you're trying to create, whole humans who are going to be able to work in our society, is educational malpractice. Like it is like if you're trying to prepare people for the world as it is, not educating them around AI is like putting your head in the sand, because they're going to have a hard time getting a job. They're going to have a hard time learning new things. Everybody around them is going to be using this tool. So it's figuring out how you can help them actually kind of, leverage these tools more effectively, and not do it with hyperbole, but do it like in a smart way, what's working and what's not. And that problem right now is there are a lot of really good basic AI tools that are being used that are very effective, and there's a lot of crazy hyperbole out there. And what we're seeing is a whole lot of big AI initiatives don't have any ROI. And part of it's because they haven't defined what the ROI was in the very beginning, what they wanted it to do. Hard to put a tool on purpose if you don't know what the purpose is. So again, I go back to the idea that I don't think we have a choice. I think and by the way, I felt that way about microcomputers. I felt that way about the internet. And by the way, I feel that way about durable skills. If you're not teaching people how to work with other humans, how to communicate effectively, how to work in teams, how to, again, think critically, you are not doing your job. Right? You are not doing your job. So I think just as much as not educating them in AI is educational malpractice, not educating them in durable skills, what used to be called the liberal arts, like you're not doing your job. They're not going to be able to survive effectively. They might be able to punch buttons and do specific technical skills, but they're not going to be able to survive and thrive on the long run.
I love that term. The last couple questions that I have is, you've talked about Anders, but there's also excellence. And what is excellence for National University? Is it a graduate? Is it a employed graduate? You talked about wellness. I know what it is. The answer is, I'm just setting it up. So
two things. One is we feel deeply that students don't just come to National to get degrees. In our work with students, one of the things we know is every student we end up talking to, they made the choice to come to National because they wanted to change their lives. And that degree is a means to an end. And by the way, so if we're designing to help them change their lives, part of our value proposition are the credentials. Can we help them get the family of credentials, which, by the way, might be 3 industry certifications and a bachelor's and a master's, but the family of credentials that will open the most doors for them, give them the most power, give them the most learning, but also the connections. Because what we have found, what really opens doors often is student to student, student to faculty, student to professionals in their space. Those human connections make all kinds of difference for them. And then the experiences, what kind of real co-curricular and an internship and other kinds of experiences we can provide, those are really kind of door opening for them. So for us is, did we give them the capability to change their life, to go in a different direction? And that's what ACE picked up with the earnings outcomes. And earnings is only one of the outcomes. The other thing I would say is we're big believers in this notion of wellness. So we research wellness. We have really focused on wellness initiatives because one of the things we know is for our Ander population, we don't want them to have to be heroes that are like putting their lives on hold to get education. How can we weave this into their life so that it becomes a holistic and healthy part of how they're living? And that by being a part of National, they've learned how to live better. Like, so that not only are they economically thriving, but they're thriving as a human. Like, we're in the human development business. So how can we help that be part of the larger conversation? So for me, the graduates who are thriving, on the personal side and on the professional side, that's when we know good things are happening. And we've got all kinds of neat indicators. I mean, we've got graduates who are the CEO of DirecTV, of Hertz, Hurt as Salsa, like whatever. We have all kinds of elected officials and lawyers. Like, we have just name after name after name. Those are all fantastic, but it's just humans who've been able to change their life and kind of go in a different direction, who are better because of this work. And then who are, and this is important to us, is we have this ethos of each one reach one, which is every one of our graduates, we challenge them. You have the obligation now, because you have shown it's possible to be an Ander and to excel. Like, you are a shining symbol of it's possible. And we need each one of you to reach at least one other person on a learning journey. And it doesn't have to be at National, it can be anywhere, but you need to inspire another Ander, another person who needs this kind of journey for themselves. You can be that symbol and that sign that they can do it too. And what's really great is that each one reach one ethos is just kind of across the board. People get pretty excited about it.
Yeah. The last framework that I want to leave people with is the one that you shared at the end of dinner. It's related to personalization.
Yeah.
The analogy that you used was your favorite car, because it's not just about reaching students in their own way through distance learning. Why is personalization important? How can technology help us and help it tell it in the story?
It's about finding your home. Like, you got to find a place that's right for you.
Yeah.
And I'll go shorter with the story if I can for you.
Yeah.
But the thing I talked about is the fact when I was a kid, I fell in love. My next door neighbors got a 280Z. And we were not a family with means at all. In fact, our main car was a station wagon, as you can imagine, with our big, crazy family. But that 280Z showed up, and I was completely blown away. That my 11-year-old self was like, that's the car I want. I always want to have this 280. I want to have that 280Z. And I started playing basketball. I was by 13, 14, I was 6'4", and I was super skinny. But I was in the basketball program, and then I got to meet the star point guard for the varsity team, who happened to be my next door neighbor, who their family had the 280Z. And so first thing he did when he saw me, he's like, "Man, you need to lift." He's like, "You need to put on some muscle." And so he invited me over to lift with him. And so I'm like, I'm all for it. And so I'm going over to lift with him, and that 280Z is in the driveway. He's like, "Yeah, it's pretty nice, isn't it?" I'm like, "Oh my gosh." And he's like, "You want to get in?" I'm like, "Oh, absolutely." So he kind of brings me over and opens the door, and I try to get in. And imagine what happens. That car is designed for an average Japanese man in 1975. I got in that car. Absolutely. My head couldn't even get in. My knees were in the dashboard. Elbows were everywhere. I mean, and I still remember this day, Brian kind of looking down on me as I'm trying to get in there. And he's like, "Oh, man, that ain't for you." That's not for you. And it's heartbreaking, because that was like my dream, was that car. And the realization that that isn't going to be the dream. Now, I'll fast forward now, because one of the things you learn is you have to find the car that fits you.
Yeah.
But our challenge went when I started having our own kids. You heard about my 9 kids, 25 foster kids. My wife and I have 4 kids, which my mom calls a starter family. But my boys, I have a couple boys that are really big. I have a 6'6" son and a 6'8" son.
That's awesome.
And so our challenge was second row. Like, you have to have a car big enough with a second row so their legs can fit and their heads can fit. So it means my wife got eco-shamed all the time, because she always had a Suburban. She always had an Expedition, because we had
in California,
the kids are that big. And when Max, my youngest, who's 6'6", 300, was time to get him a car, like one of the things we had to like make sure he had a conversation is like, what kind of car are you going to get? And we said, guess what? Our place in North Carolina is out in rural area where you actually have to take off your own garbage and things like that. I'm like, because you need this and because it'd be great to have a truck to be able to take the garbage off all the time, guess what you're going to get? You're going to get it. We got him a GMC Sierra. Really nice truck. It's a beautiful car. And you get in that car and it's absolutely gorgeous. Right. Everything about it is absolutely amazing. And what's great is he's humble enough and just grateful enough around the entire thing. But you get in that car, and I got in that car, and I'm like, and what's great is it fits.
Perfect fit.
It's a perfect fit.
It drives nice.
and the thing is like, yeah, the 280Z is nice, but
not for you.
Not for me.
Yeah.
And 280Z, definitely not for Max. Max is going to break that car. So the part of it is like the realization that there are people for whom the 280Z is perfect. There are people for whom the smaller sports car is great. And what I would say is that there are students for whom traditional education is 100% what they should do. Yeah. That is what they're about. But by the way, later in life, they might need a different model. And that's why it's okay. Like we should not be in better than conversations with other educational institutions. We love San Diego State. We love UCSD and the things that they're doing. We love our community colleges and our K-12. We should be in a better with conversation. How can we work together for people at different ages and stages with different needs to like hope that there are great, accessible, high quality options for them whenever they meet that time frame, and really kind of encourage them to take advantage of it however they can do it. And it doesn't matter if it's, if you want to get your sports car, if you want to get your truck, it just has to do with what fits for you.
Yeah, love it. Well, at this point of the show, we get into the lightning round. I'm going to ask questions, and they're just designed to have like short sound bites that are going to be helpful for people. So the first question that I have for you is related to books. You mentioned a book earlier at dinner that I think we should share with people. Is called Range. So why did you talk about Range at dinner?
Yeah, the book Range by Epstein, a fantastic writer, by the way.
David Epstein.
Yeah. And the thing that he has done in that book is really made the case that it's not the 10,000 hour rule that kind of like rules. It actually is this idea of learning broadly, and that learning broadly gives you the ability to have analogy-based thinking and the ability to solve wicked problems together. And he does a really good job in there in particular about probably some of the best examples of aggregated marginal gains, about how you get a little better all the time. And also one of the best examples about why education and healthcare are truly wicked domains, and you need that kind of durable skill combined with technology to be able to solve those kind of problems. It was a fantastic read for our university. We do every month, our University Leadership Council gets together and we do a common reading or we do a common watch, and then we come back and talk about what is that going to mean for us. And Range was one of our first ones, and people really embraced it across the board. And the idea is there's lots of places we can learn from, and we have to be humble enough to realize, hey, there might be a great idea over here that we can bring in over here. Let's do some learning around it.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite books as well. The subheader is How Generalists Triumph in a Highly Specialized World. You have some really nice sneakers on. Can you talk about your shoes?
No, I have shoes that are from our partners at the Padres. One of the things that's great for us is we have a whole great family of community partners. The San Diego Padres are amazing partners with us. They absolutely love our support of veterans, our support of working students, and they have been amazing. So they gifted me some kind of great shoes for from their Friday night uniform set, which is great. And basically one of their program people said, Mark, you have to up your kick game, man. So he sent me some shoes on that. And then we also partner with the Lakers, and the Lakers are absolutely amazing. They have been, same thing, wildly supportive. They love the work we're doing with veterans. They love the work we're doing with active duty. And they're very supportive of especially with working students and especially parents who are going through school. So we've been on center court showcasing our Anders, kind of giving away the big checks, all that with that. So they've been really, really good partners.
Awesome. Clearly on the curve, you all are in the innovator category, and you all are doing
troublemaker category, whatever
right now, right? Given that it's early for most people and for everybody, even us, right? Where do you want to take AI? Obviously we talked about Wingman, but what do you want to do that you haven't done yet?
Yeah, I think we're learning. We're in a definite learning mode right now. Anybody who tells you they have AI all figured out, they're lying.
Facts.
Right? And what you want is you want to be around people who have a sense of humility and are trying to learn about what works and what doesn't right now, as opposed to selling you about features, functions, whatever it is. And what I really want to be around is people who are getting real about this and figuring out what are the highest value things for us to make sure we're investing our time in. So we're in the stage right now where we are looking at. You've got levels of AI, right? So you've got automations that really work specific things. You got chatbots, and chatbots have been wildly successful for us because they answer quick questions and they get there. And then there's, kind of our co-pilot Wingman strategy, right? And the Wingman strategy, so far, so good. It has been very useful for advising and for enrollment and for some of our core academics. Getting and learning about the true agentic where they're kind of on their own a bit, because you've got the reactive and proactive AI is different. And we're trying to figure out there's going to be a level of what I call training and trust with agentic AI, where we're going to have to do, that's going to take some time to make sure you're trusting but verifying, right?
Yeah.
In terms of what's happening with that. So we're not there yet. I think we're going to learn.
Yeah.
A lot of people who are going to learn in that larger process because our students are precious cargo. So we can't use them as we can't just use them as infrastructure or as some kind of targets. We have to make sure we're doing this stuff in an incredibly ethical and effective way.
Yeah. No, you kind of set up my next question, which was another book you brought up, which was Unreasonable Hospitality.
Love that book.
And you talked about reactive, proactive.
If you haven't read Unreasonable Hospitality, Will Guidara, by the way, he has great TED Talks as well. It's amazing. Fantastic stuff.
So are there any analogies from that book that you can tie to proactive or reactive support, whether it's with technology or with humans for students?
I think the neat thing about Will Guidara's perspective and with the teams that he's pulled together is we read, along with that book, we read the book Power of Moments. Power of Moments by Heath and Heath. Absolutely amazing. Same kind of principle. But one of the things he did is he kind of looked at the journey of somebody coming into his restaurant. And you can think about that. It's a learning journey for somebody coming through. And thinking about all these key touch points, these key moments that they have across the board. And asking yourself, is that done by default or is that by design? And start redesigning and then making sure you're providing the right supports for somebody in that moment to help them make the most. That's where I think, you got to think about what are the tools at our disposal to help that moment be the best it possibly can be. So for us with AI, for example, in these moments, what can you deploy right away to help that student make a better choice, go in a better direction, meet the right person? Sometimes that'll be a person, sometimes that can be an AI resource, and figuring out how you can combine those kind of things becomes a really big deal. I'm always I'm struck by you remember in the book they talk about the once you've paid your check and you're walking out, the last thing people have to do is get their coats and their hats, and they're ruffling through a horrible hat room and coat check. It's like, no, at his place, when somebody pays their check and they're standing up, the hand signals happen all over the place. And as they're walking to the front, there's a group of people with their coats ready to put their coats on and give them their hats and have them walk out. That's the final thing you got. You want to talk about knocking it out of the park? That's a great experience.
The chef opens the door for you.
How can you redesign these experiences? And that's where AI can help you think about how you reimagine that and create the right kind of support.
Yeah. No, it reminds me of what you said, even with NULA, where you're actually teaching students yourself. That's right.
You got to be in the game.
You're a leader. And so the last question is, what have we not said about National University that you want people to know that they should know?
Yeah, I think the most important thing for National University is that we are radically dedicated and we are dedicated to this mission of serving our Andor population with both access and excellence at the core of everything we're doing. But we're actually humble enough to understand that we are in a family of other institutions that are doing very similar work, and that we want to learn with them. The idea is we can all be better together. And the idea, again, our competition is not each other. Our competition is poverty. Our competition is lack of opportunity. And let me tell you what, ASU's doing some amazing things. WGU's doing some amazing things. SNU's knocking the ball out of the park. Purdue, UMGC. And just being in that world and learning from each other is absolutely valuable. So what I hope people see about National University is that we're in that family of learners who the main thing is the main thing, which is to help those students be more successful. It's not about our brand. It's about our work.
You guys heard it. Keep the main thing the main thing. This was President Mark Miller, Aaron, and we appreciate you. Thank you for being on The New Normal.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.